Hey guys, Worm Wrangler here, and today we're taking a look at the Gripen A. This thing used to be completely untouchable on release, annihilating entire lobbies on its own. But after multipathing height got reduced, Fox 3s got added, and the flight model got nerfed at least 3 times. Does it still hold up? Well, let's take a look. By far the weakest part of this plane is its missile loadout. Your main missile is going to be the AIM-9M, which you can bring 6 of, which can work, but personally I find pretty frustrating to use. It uses tracking suspension IRCCM, so its seeker shuts off when it detects flares and guesses where the target will be next. It's supposed to work best on enemies flying side aspect to you, and it can be unflareable in the right conditions, but personally I find that it's pretty frustrating to use because it's very inconsistent. Because it shuts its seeker off when it detects flares, it's pretty hard to hold a lock through when an enemy is flaring, even if it is flying in the ideal aspect to you and the IRCCM should be working. You can try to fix this by radar slaving the missile, but if they're flying side aspect to you, they might also be notching you as well, making it very hard to hold the lock. They're also pretty easily fooled if an enemy launches a missile, and you can't even try to use this missile to shoot another missile down because it detects it as a flare and it'll shut its seeker off. Its front aspect detection range is pretty weak, so sometimes if they're flying directly towards you, it's hard to get a lock. And in the short range rear aspect, it's also not very consistent. Even when you get the perfect shot on a side aspect enemy that's not flaring, the missile can pretend to lock the enemy, but actually be tracking the air behind them for some reason, and when you fire the missile, it flies off in a straight line, doing absolutely nothing. Basically, I feel like there's no way to make the missile lock feel consistent, even if you're firing at enemies that aren't paying attention or maneuvering. With gate-width IRCCM missiles like Magic 2s or R73s, you can pretty consistently guarantee kills if you fired in the perfect, ideal conditions. Pure rear aspect from close range. But using this missile feels like I'm gambling, and I have to wait and see if the missile actually decides to track all the way through, making it difficult to decide whether I actually need to do a follow-up shot or not. And when their IRCCM does work, it feels more like a surprise than an actual consistent mechanic. Beyond the very inconsistent IRCCM mechanics and the target tracking, it's also just a very slow to accelerate missile that pulls very poorly off the rail. So it's very hard to use in close quarters or dogfights even if you're pulling massive amounts of lead. Plus, you have to wait 1.8 seconds for the proxy fuse to activate, so even if you do get a good lead in a launch, or you aim it well in a head-on, sometimes it'll just fly right by and not do any damage because it was too close. Really, the only good things I have to say about the 9M is that if you do manage to fire it in ideal conditions, they can be pretty tough for the target to evade and flare, even from a distance. Especially since there are a lot of inexperienced players flying around here that don't quite know how to flare it. Heck, even I'm not entirely sure how I'm supposed to flare this thing. Also, they have pretty decent range if you launch them at high speeds. There are no R27 ETs, but they do tend to catch people that I didn't expect they would be able to catch. You do also have the option to take up to 4 Sky Flashes, which are basically AIM-7 E2 DFs, but these feel even less consistent, even under ideal firing conditions. And for each one you bring, you'll lose a BOL countermeasure pod, so personally I just stick to the 9Ms, as wonky as they are. If it had Skyflash Super Temps, then I would maybe consider it, but not the base Sky Flashes. Everything else about this plane is very good though. You have a great radar with 70-degree horizontal, 60-degree vertical scan, TWS with NCTR target ID, a 19km ACM and HMD, and a full RWR. The only part of the sensor suite that I kind of wish it had is an IRST since its primary weapon is an IR missile, but it's not too big of a loss. It has an ungodly amount of countermeasures at 720 if you bring every BOL pod, so once you get into a dogfight, you can pretty comfortably just leave it on periodic countermeasures on for quite a long time without running out. Do keep in mind that the BOL countermeasures are much less effective and last much less time, so when you need to, you should just spam dump them even if you do have periodic on. The gun is very good, with very high muzzle velocity making it very easy to aim, and when you do get a good burst in, it does consistent damage. I just wish it had more than 120 rounds of ammo. The flight performance is great, though it's nowhere near as good as it used to be, and you do have to be careful of a few things while flying this thing. The biggest thing to note is that the plane's pitch compresses quite heavily above 700 kph. Below that, you turn and rate very well, both at medium and low speeds. Between 700 and 900, you still have pretty good maneuverability, but above that the plane feels pretty stiff and can be tough to pull in for notching or for missile launches. It doesn't feel sluggish though, since its roll stays pretty snappy at high speeds too. To work around this issue, you need to be very aware of your speed and react with good throttle and airbrake control to fit the situation that you are in. Don't be afraid to pop air brakes and lower throttle if you really need to get a quick notch in or a quick turn in for a missile launch. When you stay below your compression limit speed, you'll be able to win most dogfights even against very strong flight models, though you still do need to be careful and think about how you approach each fight. You'll win against F-16s if they don't go for a mid-speed rate fight. F-2s are closer and they fight pretty evenly with you, so try to force an overshoot so that you can use your low-speed maneuverability. F-18s and flankers have a very tight first turn, so try not to get into a scissors with them, but beyond that, you can pretty comfortably win just by holding down your pitch key. This plane also does have an AOA delimiter, but it doesn't really help that much. It can give you a small boost at low speeds, like if you're at the top of the loop or just trying to pull in for a shot in a scissors, but otherwise it just makes your plane floppy and your mouse aim wonky, so I wouldn't use it for more than a few seconds at a time when you need it. Your plane is also pretty fast, pretty close to an F-16A, so if the situation gets bad, you do have the option to just extend away. So, how do you play this plane? Because this plane is very bad at anything other than short-range combat, you want to sneak up on your enemies and ambush them with your 9Ms. You do have the option to rush in immediately with your maneuverability and countermeasures and furball it out, and that can be fun, but if possible you want to enter that furball with a bang and take out as many enemies as you can while you're not spotted. How well you do in this plane comes down to your positioning before and execution during the furball. At the start of the match, I like to climb a bit to the left, not too far to the left, and stay below contrail height and see if I can pick up a kill of an enemy below or above me that hasn't spotted me yet. Then wait for the initial merge between teams to happen before jumping in. While this plane is very good at 1v1 dogfights, I would avoid going after lone enemies if they're going way off to the side of the map, since your missile range is limited, so it'll take a while for you to get to them, kill them, then come back to the main fight that's probably already over by that time. If at any point you get attacked, you can defend very well, but you don't really get a chance to counterfire unless the enemy makes a mistake and gets too close, so ideally you're not spotted until you make your entrance into the furball. Once your team and enemy team merge, try to find a good angle to attack from, ideally from above or from the side, to make the most out of your RCCM, and once you've attacked, you can stay aggressive and stay in the middle of the furball with your periodic countermeasures and multipathing to fly around and kill as many enemies as you can. At this point, it just comes down to how well you can react to your immediate situation and execute in the moment-to-moment gameplay. This gameplay, as well as the BR range, can get pretty chaotic, so you can get hit by a lucky missile from the enemy team, or even if you yourself are doing really well, your team might just collapse, but this is the most consistent strategy that I've found to work. Overall, a very different playstyle from your typical 13.0, but it can be very fun to ambush people and then weasel your way out of bad situations using your maneuverability and countermeasures, assuming your 9Ms decide to work. And once again, before we get into the full matches, I'm going to showcase some dogfights against some specific airframes. Here we're fighting an F-16D. If I'm not mistaken, it's one of the worst F-16s, so under most scenarios I should pretty comfortably be able to win this dogfight. I just needed to make sure that when I came in from the initial merge that I didn't come in too fast and compressed, but you can see here right now that I'm very easily turning inside of him. He realizes he's losing the fight and decides to make the right call by extending away, so I'm going to turn away a little bit to see if he decides to re-engage. Thankfully, he's not in the business of running, so he decides to turn back, and now we're back in the dogfight. And I want to make sure I don't die in this head-on, so I'm going to turn in very early. This is going to give him a lot of positional advantage at the start of the vertical scissors, but I'm pretty comfortable that this plane will still be able to turn inside, but I'm willing to bait him into that slow-speed stall fight so that I can get him into a position where I can kill him. This was a little sketchy here. He almost got guns on me, but I turn away so that he can't get the shot, and so he decides to dive away to regain his energy. Since he did turn back the last time, I'm pretty sure that he will also try to come back in for the fight. He's not just running away for running's sake. But it also looks like he's trying to use these mountains as covers, so I'm going to see if I can chase him around them. It's a little difficult to predict where he's going because he's no longer spotted, but I'm going to predict that he's going to come back over these mountains to go for the merge again. Once again, the spotting system working as intended. And because I'm going around 700, I just pull in really hard for this one turn, and I'm able to get the shot in here. The F-16D pilot flew the plane about as well as he could, but the Gripen just wins it in most regards. If it was an F-16A or an F-2, then the fight would have been a lot closer, but I wasn't able to get any good dogfights against those planes in-game. Next dogfight, I'm trying to get an AIM-9M launch on an F-18C early. I think surely this missile reaches him. He's only 2 kilometers out, and he manages to kill this JF-17 with the Sparrow, and my 9M barely doesn't make it. Looks like he's turning back for a potential dogfight. I need to lower my throttle and pop air brakes so that I don't overshoot him because I was going above 1,000 kilometers per hour. And now that I'm back under 700 kph, I'm going to throttle back up and retract my air brakes. I'm not really sure what kind of a fight he's going for, but it looks like he did maintain some of his speed, so he might be going for a rate fight. And try to get another 9M launch on him, but it doesn't work. Spray a bit the guns, and that also misses. There's also another F-18 coming in. This guy is taking really wide turns, and so it's making it quite easy for me to pull in. If he was an experienced F-18 player, then he could have tried to force the overshoot by lowering throttle and forcing a scissors fight, but it looks like he didn't go for that. This other F-18 is launching a bunch of sparrows at me, so I'm going to stay at multipath height, which is pretty easy here on this map because it's a very flat desert. And I'm going to pull under him when I think he's going to be close enough for a gunshot, so that he can't get a good solution. It looks like he's coming into the fight with a lot of speed, so he's going to overshoot very quickly. Here, if he were smart, he would either try to go vertical or try and extend away and use his energy advantage to turn this fight around, but it looks like he's just going to turn straight in front of my face, and it's not going to be a very difficult fight. F-18s can be very scary in a 1v1 if they know what they're doing, but most of the time the pilots playing them don't really know what they're doing, especially if they're in the premium variants. Next dogfight, I'm coming in with quite a bit of speed against this F-14 and this J-11. If they both turn with me, then I should pretty comfortably be able to win the 2v1, but I don't really want to take any chances, so I'm going to try and make sure that one dies before I really commit to a dogfight. So I'm going to try and keep my speed here. I'm only dropping down to 100% throttle, and I'm not popping air brakes so that I can make sure that I can get away if necessary. Launching an AIM-9M at this F-14, hopefully it sticks. And it looks like it got him. Now it's just this J-11. He is coming in with a lot of position, so if he air brakes and sticks on my 6, then I might be just dead here, but he overshoots with a lot of speed, so I'm able to get my nose inside of his circle. I'm not quite able to pull in for the shot, so it looks like we're going up into the vertical. It also looks like he's using his AOA button pretty aggressively here, but because it's not a Su-30 or a Su-33, he's not able to whip his nose completely around, so I'm able to stay out of his gun and HMD. He's almost completely stationary though, so I'm not quite able to pull inside of this circle. And he has pretty quickly turned his nose around towards me, but I don't think he'll be able to pull up for me because he's completely out of speed and completely stalled out now. And so to recover, he dives down and tries to gain more speed. And it looks like it's a rate fight now, which I will definitely win if it keeps continuing. I'm going to dive down here a little bit to gain more speed and so gain more turn, and I'm pretty comfortably able to pull in for this shot. I'm only able to get a crit though, and he's still flying pretty fine. And I want to make sure that I don't overshoot him in front of his nose in case he still has an R73, so I'm going to pitch on over his nose so that he can't get to me without stalling his nose out again. It looks like he's just continuing away upwards, and he's definitely screwed now. I'm going to be able to get a very easy shot while he's very slow. There's an F-14 coming in right now, so I need to make sure that I stay in the notch angle so that he can't launch any missiles at me, and hope that the J-11 doesn't shoot a missile at me while he's burning up. I should also pretty comfortably be able to win against an F-14, even if he pops his wings out. I just need to make sure that he doesn't get a shot on me while he approaches me here. Luckily, none of those hits, so I'm able to pull my nose around over, and since he's going so fast into this merge, he's going to overshoot. He hasn't managed to pop his wings out either, so I should pretty easily win this fight if he keeps turning like this. If I had something other than an AIM-9M, I would try to launch it here, but it's pretty terrible in the CQC situation, so I'm just going to go for guns, and it looks like those hit. No severe yet, though, so he might be able to survive this if he puts the fire out. So I'm going to make sure that he goes down by firing a 9M at him. And that's game. If I don't make any mistakes, then there really is nothing that a J-11 or an F-14 can do against the Gripen. This match is a full down tier. I'm flanking to the left, and I'm noticing that nobody is targeting me up here at high altitude, so I'm also noticing that a lot of enemies are going to be cresting this ridge over here, so I'm going to try and use this as cover and sneak up on them while they come over. I'm tracking an F-4 that's coming over this hill right now. I can see his dot, so I should be able to fire on him pretty soon. And once I get this first kill, I'm going to start a timer. You'll see why. Missile is out, and it does not look like he's noticed me at all. I spot a second F-4S. He's just cresting the hill, so that's another missile out for him. I get a little worried that he might dip down below this ridge and the missile might not be able to get to him, but it does find its mark. Our team seems to be doing pretty well on the right, so I'm going to see if I can find anybody else back here, and it looks like there's an F-4F Ice that's also just popping over this ridge. Once again, he has no idea that I'm here, so I'm going to fire another missile out at him. He almost dives low enough to dodge the missile, but he's just barely not able to dodge it. And two more very convenient targets showing right up in front of my face. That's one for the F-4S and one for the Su-33. I have to wait a little bit before firing because he fired a missile and I don't want it to track that. But because I fire it late, the missile isn't quite able to get to him in time before somebody else takes him out. I was hoping I'd at least get an assist out of that, but unfortunately I don't. And one last missile for the F-4S. Is it gonna track? It looks like it has, and that's all severes. Now we just gotta wait for them to finish themselves off, and that's game. I think this has to be one of the fastest aces I've gotten in this BR range. And while I did plan a little bit for that setup, I could not have imagined that they would come right in front of me one after another. I just kinda wish that Su-33 didn't get shot down by my teammates. Then that would have been a 6 kill. This match I'm moving a lot more with my team, and I'm tracking this F-15 that's down low. There's also a good chance that the friendlies are also tracking him. He just gets spotted right now, but he is also multipathing pretty hard, so there's a good chance that he survives through the first merge. So I'm gonna see if I can dip down here and get the kill on him with the 9M. You can see that my turn is pretty wide because I'm not dropping speed, but I do kind of want to stay fast right now because I haven't committed to any fight, and I want to launch this missile with as much energy as possible. Unfortunately, no sauce there. This is typically what happens when you go after enemies that are already spotted. Your plane and your missiles are too slow to catch up, and you get outcompeted by Fox 1s and Fox 3s. Nobody's really spotted yet, so I'm a little hesitant to rush straight into the middle of the battlefield. I'm going to sort of try and delay my turn so that I can wait for my friendlies to go in first and spot the enemies for me. And hopefully that way I can avoid being targeted first and jumped by enemies that I can't see. This is a full up tier to 14.0, so there's a good chance that if an enemy finds me and hard targets me that I might not be able to survive. Much less counterattack. Still not that many enemies spotted, but my friendlies hopefully will be able to rush in and spot the enemies for me, so I'm going to try and follow them in and see what happens. I was going to target down low, but a missile diamond pops up to my left, and so there's a target that's really close to me that I haven't spotted yet. It's the new Thai F5 with the derbies. I can't really tell if he spotted me or not, but I'm going to just launch on him and ignore him for now, since there's this J-11 that I also want to fire at. I wasn't sure if that missile was going to hit, but it does look like it caught him. Hopefully the one that I fired at the J-11 also finds its mark. There's the severe damage. I'm turning periodic on now that I'm probably spotted by the enemies. There's a good chance that somebody is targeting me at this point, especially since I'm up high and not multipathing. There's a Kafir C10 on our RWR, so I'm going to try not to die to him. And if that guy was targeting me, there would have been a good chance that I died there. I won't be able to pull in for the Kafir, but I'm going to see if I can launch on this J-11, then this Su-33. This is a pretty close range shot on the Su-33, but it does manage to hit him, and it sets him on fire, but unfortunately my teammate takes the kill there. I'm still going to count it because that is effectively a kill that I managed to get. I went to check their airfield, but nobody was there, and it turns out the last enemy is an F-16 that decided to flank around our entire team and harass everybody that was RTB. It looks like he's RTB right now, so I'm going to see if I can catch him on the way back. I'm going to see if I can fly towards the side to avoid getting spotted and then fire an AIM-9M from side aspect so it's going to be harder for him to flare. It's a little hard to tell whether somebody's actually spotted you or not, but he isn't responding at all to my movement, so I'm going to go for it and launch my final missile. It is a bit of a far range, but he is heading towards me, so the missile should be able to intercept him. And that got him. Basically an ace if it wasn't for that Su-33 not getting counted. Goes to show that if you don't get targeted at high altitude, you can get quite a lot of work done just by slinging missiles down. Again, I'm starting up at high altitude. It doesn't look like there's anybody down low that I can target right now, but I do see this F-16 that is heading sort of in my direction. So I'm going to see if I can fly underneath him and target him from below. It does require me getting up close to him, and he does decide to fly off to the side, so it makes it a little difficult for me to chase him down, but I am going pretty fast, so I'm comfortable slinging this missile off at this range. It looks like he is trying to avoid my missile, but maybe he thinks it's a radar missile. He is going downwards, and he's not flaring until the very last second. Maybe he was getting an RWR ping from something else as well and thought it was a radar missile. Even though I did have to chase him a little bit, it doesn't look like I'm too far from the fight, so I should pretty easily be able to get back and find something to do. I see a missile diamond show up to my bottom left, and there's a J7D down here. Not sure what he's doing at this BR, but I'm going to see if I can fire a missile at him once I'm within range. He is flying away, and he is also going pretty fast, so I'm not really sure if this will track, but I'm going to try it anyways. F-16 coming in from the front. Sometimes it's a little risky trying to get these radar slave shots off. I'm not quite able to pull in as much as I'd like to, so I decided not to fire that missile. It looks like the one that I fired on the J7D also didn't manage to get to him, so I'm going to fire another one at him and hope that the side aspect shot actually gets him this time. I'm alone over here with this F2 and this F-16, and they can both be pretty dangerous targets, but they do present a good opportunity for my 9Ms to be slung off, so I'm going to see if I can do that. This is a pretty good side aspect shot on both of them, so it should hopefully get them. Nice, it looks like the IRCCM decided to work for both of them. And that J7D is still alive. I'm going to fire my last missile out on him, and hopefully this time it actually puts him into the ground. Now, I have been pretty tunnel vision towards the things that were right in front of my face, and so I wasn't really able to pay attention to what was going on. It looks like there's a Gripen that's chasing me now. Luckily, I had my periodic countermeasures on. And I would have tried to take the fight here if it was just the Gripen, but there's also an F-16, and I really don't want to get stuck in a 2v1, especially when I'm out of missiles. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to extend away and try to RTB, and hopefully they don't chase after me. I'm pretty consistently getting RWR pings from directly behind me, so they are definitely chasing after me. So I need to make sure that I maintain this multipathing height, and I'm going to try and conserve my countermeasures, because if I leave them on, then I'm not going to have any left. Okay, it does look like they've pulled off now, so it should be safe to RTB. The friendly F-14 somehow manages to kill the F-16D with a Falcor. That's actually really good. I don't usually expect very much from Iranian F-14 pilots. But I don't see how he's going to win against an F-2 unless he also gets a Falcor on it. There's still 3 enemies left. It's 2 Gripen Cs and 1 F-2 that's currently engaging the F-14. So I'm guessing I'm probably going to be stuck in a 3v1 after I manage to RTB. Surprisingly, the F-14 hasn't died yet though. It looks like he's actually managed to get into a dogfight, which he probably will lose, but considering the fact that he survived this long, that's actually quite impressive. You can see me looking back trying to assess the progress of the dogfight and see who's winning. I guess considering that F-14 hasn't also been jumped by the other enemies, I probably could have landed at the other airfield and gotten back quicker, but I've had too many instances of me getting strafed on the runway to be comfortable trying to land on the secondary runway. So it is usually safer to go for the main runway. I think the airfield AA at top tier also got buffed. It used to be Roland's, but now it's ITO's, meaning that it's actually much harder to try and strafe people on the main airfield, so it is a lot safer now. It does also mean that airfield camping is a lot more annoying, but usually the games don't last that long either way, so it's not too bad. Looks like one of the Gripens was damaged, so he goes down, and I comfortably managed to make it back to the runway. This is why I like carrying max fuel in this plane. It does make you heavier, and it does reduce your dogfighting performance a little bit, but the Gripen already performs very well in the dogfight, so it can afford to have a little extra weight on you. And it's really useful if you just need to punch the throttle and get the heck out of a situation. And I have no idea how, but the F-14 somehow managed to kill the F-2. That is insane. Checking the replay footage, it looked like that F-2 really was trying to lose. If he had just stuck a raid fight, then he would have automatically won against the F-14, even though he had his wing swept out. And especially considering he didn't dump his Falcors at the start of the dogfight. Unfortunately, for some reason, the F-14's controls decide to go out. I don't know really why. Maybe he accidentally switched to full real controls. But in the chat, he's saying, what the heck, there's an EMP or something like that. And so he loses control and somehow manages to crash into the ground. It could be a weird game bug, but just looking at the footage, it's kind of hard to tell. It just looks like he went to full real control and the plane decided to spin out on its own. Rather unfortunate for him, but it's going to give me an opportunity to 1v1 this last Gripen. I reduced my fuel load to 20 minutes because I know that only one of us is going to make it back out alive, and we're not going to need to return to base. The blind hunt that my friendly popped has now expired and it's now on me, and last I checked I saw the Gripen flying into this general area, but I can't really find him because there are a lot of AI enemy targets that are cluttering up my radar, so I'm going to extend a little bit and try and come in from a different direction so that I can actually spot him before we merge. I don't want to enter this dogfight caught off guard, especially since he knows exactly where I am from the blind hunt. There's a good chance he's turned his radar off so that he's remaining stealthy and I can't spot him. But it looks like he's trying to get a lock on me now, so I'm going to turn back in and see if I can find him. My radar will be able to tell me whether it's the Gripen that I'm locking or some other target, so I should be able to tell what's coming after me. So I'm going to turn back and look for him, and there he is. He's the target that's heading straight for me at high speed. Looks like he decided to stay low. An interesting choice. If I were him, I would have gone high and tried to lob my derbies from high above so that I had no way to respond. But maybe he doesn't know that I'm a Gripen A and that I don't have any Fox 1s or Fox 3s to respond. Hopefully I can get into the merge and then force a dogfight. I'm staying at multipath height because he's definitely going to launch some derbies at me. I'm hoping this terrain is going to be favorable for me, but it's kind of hard to tell without actually going over it, and that was really close, but I do manage to multipath over it. You can see that my throttle is 0. I'm trying to reduce my throttle so that I can get into the merge at the correct speed. And now it's a dogfight. Throttle is going to go back up. I'm going to try and launch these missiles off. It looks like he came into the merge with a lot more speed, so he's overshot, but I'm not quite able to pull in for the shot here. And these missiles definitely aren't going to hit, but I'm going to try and sling him off anyways, since at this point they're just going to be extra weight. He's leveraging his extra speed to go up and over me, and so I'm going to have to dip down in order for me to maintain this rate. And things aren't looking very favorable for me right now. He has the energy advantage and we're in a rate fight, but I am sort of starting to pull in for him. Maybe he went too slow in the top of the rate. Looks like he's diving down a little bit to cash his energy into speed and turn, and by doing so he's gaining a lot of position on me right now. I'm probably not going to be able to use these missiles, so I dump them to lighten my load, and maybe that was the biggest difference. I'm really able to pull into him now. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get a gun solution right here. And that's GG. I wasn't sure if it was going to be a good decision to dump my missiles, considering there was a chance that he might run away if the dogfight got bad, but looks like it worked out in the end. That was a very good dogfight, and a very satisfying way to end the match. This is the last full match I have to show. I'm back up at high altitude, and I'm actually a lot farther ahead of my team than I want to be, but this match I think, hey, maybe I'll try playing a little bit more aggressive than I normally do, so I'm going to try and rush in as quickly as I can. There's an F-14 up at high altitude, and it looks like he's launching full course towards my general direction, so I'm going to preemptively turn away so that maybe I can break his TWS and data link lock before the missile actually gets to me. It looks like I wasn't quick enough, but a quick notch should be able to defeat the missile. And now that I'm not getting any RWR, I'm going to turn back in and see if I can find anybody to target. It looks like there might be a few F-18s that are down low, so I might try and go after those guys. Otherwise, this area seems pretty clear. I don't really want to climb up and chase after that F-14, especially since it looks like he's turning back and RTBing. Interestingly, this is an everybody against US match at 13.7, so I kind of know what kind of enemies to expect while going in. It's going to be F-18s, F-16s, F-15s, F-14s. And knowing what kinds of enemies I'm going to face means that it's going to be easier to counter them individually. I'm holding this TWS lock, and I'm hoping that I might be able to get a top-down 9M shot on him while he's too busy multipathing. Especially at the start of the match, people are too busy hugging the terrain and don't look up, and so don't expect a 9M or any other IR missile to come down. That was a pretty opportunistic shot. I don't know if it's going to hit, but I'm going to go after this F-15 instead now. He doesn't have any idea that I'm here, and I do actually get the F-18. I launch my second missile through the clouds, and it looks like there might be another missile coming up towards me, so I'm going to try and notch the one that's off to my left. Looks like it's probably a 7P from an F-18. There are a lot of enemies heading this direction. The second missile finds its mark, and now I have two F-18s chasing me, plus more missiles falling from the sky, and that's a third F-18 heading straight for me. It looks like there's a 7P, and I don't think I'll be able to turn in fully to notch his radar, so I'm going to go for the multipath since I'm pretty close to the ground. I do want to go for the dogfight, but it's going to be pretty risky against an F-18, so I'm going to pop my air brake, lower throttle, reduce my speed. I'm not really sure how far away he is, so I'm not sure if I can pull in for the head-on, so I'm going to actually just try and go for a deflection shot dodge. It's going to be pretty risky since that thing can pull its nose really quickly, and I pull up actually way too early. But I managed to survive with relatively minor damage. He came into the fight with a lot more speed and energy, so if he just drops his nose back down onto me, I could be toast here. But he does a little weird roll before he comes back down towards me, so it gives me the opportunity to stay inside of his circle, and I managed to get a shot on here. I shear his wing off, but I only get a critical, so it's only an assist. But I am going to count it here. Second F-18 that had dodged my aim 9M in the head-on has now overshot, so I'm going to see if I can get another 9M on him. And it's really annoying when in these high-intensity situations, your 9M seeker decides to just go off and do its own thing. Hopefully this time it actually manages to find its mark. And it looks like I got him. That looks like it was just about everybody. There is one F-18 left over in the back, so I'm going to see if I can go after him, but for now it looks like we're safe. There are still 5 enemies up, but it looks like one of them is very busy ground pounding, and the others are nowhere to be found, so maybe they RTB'd, so I'm pretty comfortable turning my periodic countermeasures off. Last aim 9M for this F-18, and he should be going down, hopefully. It is a little bit far away, but I do want to get this missile launch off before my friendly does, so hopefully it's able to get to him. He is flaring a little bit, but it looks like the IRCCM managed to look past it. I still have quite a bit of fuel left, so I'm going to try and help this F-2A deal with the F-18 and the F-15. But it looks like he got the F-15, and it looks like he also got the F-18. There's one last enemy. There's an F-16C that looks like they're RTBing right now. I'm going to turn my radar off, and hopefully he'll go for the short airfield, thinking that we won't come after him, but the friendly F-2A is also coming this way, and there's a good chance that he has his radar on. And regardless, it looks like the F-16 is going back to his main airfield, and it doesn't look like I'll be able to catch up to him before he gets there. The F-2A decides to RTB, so I'm going to camp this guy's airfield out and see if I can get a dogfight after he rearms and takes off again. At this point, I am pretty limited on fuel, so I'm cutting my throttle to half, and hopefully I'm able to conserve it just enough so that I can stay afloat until he shows up. I don't know what this friendly Su-34 is thinking. We just saw this guy return to his airfield. Why is he popping a blind hunt? It does look like the F-16 pilot is smart though. He J's out so that the blind hunt target switches back to the Su-34. But this F-16 is taking his sweet time to leave the airfield. I can't get too close because the airfield AA has been buffed, so if I'm within range of the ground AA radar, then I'm definitely in danger, so I'm trying to stay just outside of its range and hoping that the F-16 decides to show up. And now, unfortunately, it looks like the Su-34 and another MiG-29 on my team are targeting this guy. So the F-16 is much less hesitant to leave his airfield. He's just looping around it. I'm gonna guess that the Su-34 has spammed off a bunch of R-77s onto him and hoping that he gets a kill. Otherwise, I don't really see a reason why this F-16 would try and camp the airfield this hard. I'm trying to tell the Su-34 that he's making him just camp harder and that we need to try and bait him out. But he doesn't really seem intent on listening, and so he just rushes in and tries to get the kill. Though it does look like he has the self-preservation instincts to not directly run straight into the enemy AA. And honestly, at this point, I'm more annoyed at the Su-34 than the F-16. I get that he also wants the kill, but at this point, this is just turning into a big waste of time and I'm running out of fuel. Friendly MiG-29 goes down from an AMRAAM from the F-16. At this point, I'm not entirely sure where he's actually at. I'm trying to pick him up on the radar, but he's not showing up, so maybe he actually managed to slip past me and is actually flanking around the map somewhere. The Su-34 is going somewhere, maybe he sees something, but it doesn't look like he's going towards anything in particular, so I think he's just trying to disengage for now. I don't speak Russian, but he's saying something in that language. And I did briefly get a TWS lock on something near his airfield, so there's a pretty decent chance that he's still camping his airfield. This is taking way too long. Maybe he fired off all his AMRAAMs at that MiG-29 and now he's rearming. But finally, it looks like he's looking in my direction and he's trying to lock me. Hopefully this means that he's gonna actually come out of his airfield and try to kill me. I want to try and go front aspect towards him so that he uses his missiles, but if I do that then I might get too close to his airfield AA, so I wait for him to come out a little bit farther before I go front aspect with him. I am going really slow right now to conserve my fuel, but once I know that he's fully committed to the fight, I'm going to punch my throttle and try and go back to combat speed. Here comes the first AMRAAM. I should be able to multipath it pretty easily since I'm going sideways. Hopefully he keeps firing until we get into the merge and I can force a dogfight. At this point, I'm just glad he's showing up. I've waited way too long for him to show his face. He's closing the distance pretty quickly, he's only 3 clicks out, and after this missile I should be able to pull in for a dogfight. Okay, here we go. There's a little too much space for me to try and pull in for the dogfight here just yet, but I managed to narrowly avoid that 9M, and it's a dogfight. I'm going vertical and hoping that he follows me up so that I'm able to get the stall shot on him. I want to make sure that he doesn't escape because I'm really out of fuel now, and so if I have to chase him around the airfield again, that's going to be really annoying. And at the worst possible moment, this Su-34 shows up. The F-16 wants us to respect the 1v1, but it looks like this Su-34 isn't going to be doing that, so as much as I'd like to let him kill him and then recommence the dogfight, I have nowhere near enough fuel to do so, so I'm just going to take the shot here and end the fight. A few misses, but I should have the shot again here. Well, that was a really annoying fight. I'm glad at least that the F-2 ADTW was able to get a lot of money from bombing bases this round, but honestly that was kind of a big waste of time. I was hoping I could get an interesting 1v1 at the end there, but not all games can be bangers, unfortunately. I can't be too mad at the Su-34, he was just playing the game, but I do wish he had honored the 1v1, especially considering I was waiting here for 10 full whole minutes just to get this fight. Anyways, that's all for now, bye bye.